You ready?
I'm ready.
I'm ready.
All right. Welcome to the Merna show today. No, but this one is more just Myrna's side because she was in it and I wasn't. So some of these probably, as you're noticing, I don't talk as much. And that's just because I was, on the outside looking in. So yeah, everything that you are hearing from Myrna's point of view is the only point of view that we could really give you guys outside of how I felt about what she would be telling me. So, but yeah.
Yeah, so I realized that there doesn't need to be a part 3 of Hurricane when I was doing our outline. So couldn't really think of a title for this episode. But after I did the outline, I was like, there was a lot of stuff going on mentally, between me and Ryan and just like, I remember my mental health was just going downhill at this time. So today's episode is called Anxiety, Depression, and Hopelessness. So, I mean, it's only natural to be talking about mental health since I'm a therapist and stuff. But, I wanted to dig deep into what you might be going through if you are in an interracial relationship. So, and mental health is the biggest part of that aspect. You have to take care of yourself. And if you don't, like, you will literally, you'll lose all sanity. So it was at this point that I probably should have been talking to a therapist, but I wasn't. So, but anyway, going into this episode, first and foremost, my brother caught up on the episodes and he had some things he wanted to mention to me that I figured I would put on the episode. He remembers this time as well as a lot of other family members that, who are listening to this, my cousin included. He just remembers my mom worrying so much about other people looking at her in disgust, like other people like worrying about, or her worrying about what other people may think that her daughter's marrying a black guy and all this stuff. And I just would constantly hear, my mom say like, you're so beautiful, like you're so this and you're smart, you're educated, all of this stuff, because she only knows that the women who date, in her mind, women who date black people are not, like, I guess the best looking or the best educated. I don't know what was going on in her brain, but that's essentially like the stereotype that Chaldean women have who end up dating black people. So it's like in her mind, she's like, why are you wasting your beauty, your intelligence, your this, your that on a black guy? And again, this is still before she even seen him, before she even met him, knows what he looks like, anything like that. And her and my brother had multiple talks, and my brother would just like constantly like reiterate, like essentially like, why are you so worried about other people when you should be worried about like your daughter's happiness? And I thought that was really sweet of my brother.
Yeah, he's been like the most detailed reviewer.
Yeah.
I think of the.
He sends me like paragraphs upon paragraphs of like stuff. And, he also talked about how he was going back and forth with my dad. My dad must have called my brother and my cousin Peggy, along with like other family members that he trusted, like multiple times. I remember like my poor cousin would just like, my poor cousin and my brother, like, something would happen, a fight between me and my brother, my dad would break out, and I would immediately call Peggy, or I would call my brother, and then my dad would do the same thing. So it's like they're getting two sides of the same story and essentially do damage control. And, it's like you have to be understanding even if you don't agree. And I think that was like one of the hardest parts of being a middleman, is like of being the person who's like a mediator between two parties, like it's like you have to be understanding. But like at the same time, it's like, I knew my cousin thought like, this is ridiculous. You know, like you should at least meet the guy, or you should at least like, you know, get to know him and all that stuff. And, you know, we're going to get into the waves of the different ways that my dad like tried to, I don't want to say like destroy us. I mean, what would you call it?
Sabotage?
I don't, that's such
discourage?
a like, yeah, I discourage. I wouldn't say sabotage. I mean, like, because when I think of sabotage, I think of like literally my dad telling Ryan, like, I'll give you this amount of money to leave my daughter, or I'll kill you if you like continue to date my daughter, or something like that, you know, which we'll get into later on, because that was a legit worry of mine when I went out of town one time.
And obviously he never offered me money because I'm still here. So.
Oh, so how much money would it take, Ryan?
I mean, I can't disclose the agreement that we had. But.
Okay. He's joking, guys. Or maybe he's not. I don't know. Anyway, so yeah, my brother just reiterated, like, you know, my mom, the many conversations that he had with my mom and my dad. And, you know, he was just like, he's not... you guys know from previous episodes, my brother is very Americanized. So he was just like as in disbelief of how much they were like choosing what other people are thinking about our family as opposed to like their own daughter's happiness. But in their mind, they were thinking, how could our daughter do this to us over her own happiness? Like, if you can like kind of wrap your head around that, like, I'm being selfish because I'm choosing my own happiness, because I'm choosing to date this person who makes me happy, even though I know it's going to essentially cause a hurricane in my family, you know, like family's name and stuff like that. And that's where the name actually comes from the past 2 episodes. I didn't get a chance to talk about it, but at one point in this 2-year span of me and Ryan just trying to fight for each other after my parents found out, my dad, like, literally, I can recall one conversation. He was like, you literally like put a hurricane in the family. It's like you just dropped a piece of news that was like a hurricane in our family. And I mean, like, if you want to get really technical about it, if you've ever seen videos of hurricanes, like, that's like tragic. Okay. Like, you know, it's not, you know, sometimes we use these words and we don't realize how powerful they are. Like, at that time with what we were going through, it was just very sad that's kind of like where my dad was, you know, going with it. But again, that's the only way he knew how to describe it for me to understand. And, you know, going back and forth, like, I'm going to go into like this 2-year span of like everything that was going on. And, you know, again, you're probably going to hear my voice more than Ryan, but, you know, Ryan, if you want to chime in anytime, just chime in.
Mm-hmm.
So people don't forget that you're here too. But so throughout this 2-year span before we got engaged, I must have had, because I was still seeing my dad, you know, for weekly breakfast and stuff like that. That's like kind of like our ritual. Like every Saturday we would have breakfast together. Sometimes it would include, you know, like other family members, my brother, things like that. But there were times where it was just us, and it came in like, again, waves. Like, one day he's trying to get into my head and understand where I'm coming from. Other days he's like very, 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 very like just closed-minded. This is never going to work. I will never accept this, blah, 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 blah. Like, I think a week after I told him, he came over, and it was just me, my mom, and my dad in our living room. And he was like talking to me. And I can't remember if I mentioned this in the last episode, but he basically was saying, like, you can choose who you love, you know, like I've never said like you can't be friends with anybody outside of our culture, but he legit like was like, you know, you did this, you knew what you were doing. And I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, I can't choose who I love. I think I did mention this in the last episode, so I'm not going to go into that. But he just, again, waves of like, I will never accept this. You did this to us. You hate us. You are trying to ruin us. You're trying to, you know, like do all of this stuff. And then it would be like, okay, let me hear her out. But even in the sense of hearing him out or like having him hear me out, he would still have like a rebuttal that was just like completely, it would always go back to like, you always wanted to marry a Chaldean. What happened? Or, you know, you just completely surprised us with this because you always wanted to marry a Chaldean. Or, like, I always wanted you to marry a Chaldean, you know, like things like that. Because again, keeping the culture alive and all that stuff. So, and one thing that kind of really, really frustrated me, if I'm being nice about it, I would use like a different word if I want to be honest, that really, really, really like just made my blood boil is my family, my dad especially, like would constantly say, this is not a movie, you know, like this is not a fantasy. Like thinking I was like a little kid or something, you know, like, again, at this time I was 25, I believe. I was 25. So like, you know, looking back now that I'm like almost pushing 30, like, you know, 25 is still very young, but like that's essentially the age that your brain is fully developed. So who you are at 25 may change, you know, after like as you get older. But for the most part, like your prefrontal cortex, which is the area for all your reasoning, understanding, logical thinking, all of that stuff, like it's like fully developed. So I, at that point, like I knew I wasn't doing anything wrong, you know, and again, Ryan being Ryan, he's not a bad person and he's like respectful and all of this stuff. So it really angered me that I had family members, especially my dad, who was looking at me like I was like in this fantasy. Or that this is a movie and like we're just us against the world. And that's where my dad came in thinking, oh, maybe if I accept this, she'll realize she doesn't have to fight me. Like I'm like kind of like, you know, a teenager. You know how like teenagers are. Like, you know, if you show that it's something is bad and that they shouldn't do something, that's exactly what they're going to do. But if you act like you're cool with it, they'll be like, oh, you know, I don't need to rebel anymore. Like this is kind of boring or this is kind of stupid. And they just do what you end up wanting. And it's like, I'm 25, dude. Like, you know, I'm not like a teenager. So I just remember having multiple conversations with my dad that always ended in this sentence. I had a lot of faith. You know, I wasn't like an avid churchgoer, but I had a lot of faith in God. And like I had a lot of faith in me and Ryan's relationship. So I would like tell dad, I would tell my dad, like, listen, I know you don't see it right now, but I have this vision that you are going to come over, you and mom and whoever are going to come over on a random Wednesday just to have dinner with us. Because my dad's biggest thing was thinking that I was trying to essentially like, I'm going to tear the family apart because nobody would want to have anything to do with me. And I'm like, that's exactly the opposite. I'm trying to like have you guys come along with me for this ride. You know, like I am not trying to, you know, erase my culture. I'm not trying. I mean, I was, as we mentioned before, I think in previous episodes, like I would put like Post-it notes, you know, everywhere in Ryan's room so he can learn Arabic, so he can talk to some of my family members and all that stuff. And my dad was just like thinking the complete opposite. Like you're trying to like erase, you know, our culture and, you know, whatever, all of that stuff. And again, my mom being so worried about like the family name and stuff and, you know, just very, very typical. So, it was at this point, like, I'm going to talk about my period again. Like, Ryan's shaking his head, but I have been, for my ladies out there, like, I've had a regular period since I was 10 years old. Like, that's when I first got my period. I was 10 years old. It was like, I have been regular every month since then. And after I told my dad, I did not realize how much it stressed me out that I was late for, I think, like 2 weeks, I want to say. And, you know, again, me being like this person who has like a regular period, and like I didn't even go to an OB until I was like, I think 23. I thought there was something wrong. I was like, oh my gosh, like, you know, I didn't realize how much stress I was putting on my body and like physical conditions and stuff, and constantly being anxious, even though I like, it's funny, I was more anxious and depressed like during this time than, like, when we were like in hiding and I had like a double life, you know? So, but yeah, I would just like constantly have faith in like God, and like just know that that was like a vision I would just constantly have. I would always end the conversation like, Dad, you don't see this now, but I have a vision. You guys are just going to come over on a random Wednesday to have dinner, and everything is going to just like be dandy, you know, like, so that's probably where he got like the fantasy, you know, stuff coming from. So, anything you would like to add, Ryan?
I mean, because at this point, you know, I thought it was never going to happen. They wouldn't, I guess, see the light. Yeah, I know it was a rough time, because you had to, you know, go to work, come home to this every day, and then it was just like, you know, so I felt bad. So of course I feel a certain type of way, but in my head it's just,
like, I guess, like, what made you not walk away from all this?
I don't know, I think it was just you being optimistic about it, and like I felt like if you had a much more difficult time dealing with it, then maybe that would have been a conversation. I don't know. There are points I think where you have to really look at it, and because now you're in the thick of it, and it really is a thing of, is this worth it? Because now you're truly faced with, you know, am I going to lose my dad, my mom, you know, friends of the family that I've known for years? You know, are you going to lose all these things, or are you prepared to kind of sift through what are like these, I don't know, a good way to say this, like these false doors of just not, just, you know, just your parents just not letting you in, and eventually, hopefully, there's a door that they just, you know, that they open, and that's the door that you go through, and kind of like that, the storm's over, right? You just start dealing with life and how life is, and what I mean by that is they kind of not accept it, but just come to terms. Just say, okay, yeah, this is it. Like, obviously, this is not going to change. We don't want to lose our daughter. We don't want to lose our family. So I think it was just kind of sift through, wait for that come to terms moment, which took a while.
Well, did you ever talk to your family about what was going on?
I think so. I just, you know, I think if they asked what was going on, I just felt like, I don't know what I told my mom per se. I think I just felt like I would say that they're just not accepting it right now, or not talking to Merna about it right now. But
like, you'd be very general.
Yeah, just general. I wouldn't really go into detail.
And why do you think you didn't go into detail?
I don't know, because people say dumb things when they're upset, when they're kind of surprised. So, and plus, you don't want because my mom can be a very grunge, was it grudgeful person, so she can hold on to stuff for a long time, and she still does. She still holds on to the fact that they didn't accept me for after you told them for God knows how long. I don't.
She doesn't show it, by the way.
Yeah.
She doesn't show it, by the way. She never would show it. It's just something that she has to heal from.
It's like getting denied to go somewhere like to a college or something like that, but then maybe like a friend of yours goes to that college. You're still going to hold a grudge against that college for not accepting you, but you're still happy for your friend, and you're going to go visit them a lot and all that stuff.
Yeah, like
that's kind of a good way to put it.
She, when my grandmother passed away last year, on my dad's side, like she like texted my dad and I think she called him actually. And, every time my mom FaceTimes me and I'm over there, she like talks to my mom and stuff. So it's not like it's not like she shows it at all, like it's just, again, something that I feel like, she has to heal from. But it's like, how, that's her son.
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
It's so, like, how can you, I feel for her, I'm not like, oh, how could she still be angry at my parents? It's like, how can you not,
Yeah. So
and hopefully that's like a conversation they can have in the future, but I doubt it. Yeah. And again, it's just because
it's not because they would like,
they don't see each other like that. So I think if they saw each other some more,
like they have a very, what would you call it? Like a generic in-law relationship to where they would only see each other, like big gatherings.
Yeah, because my mom lives all the way on the east side. His mom lives all the way on the west side. So it's like, it's not like they're like 10 minutes away.
Yeah, that's true too. It's a good 45 to 50-minute drive.
Yeah.
They both,
like his mom will come for holidays, like if she's not with her family or has family coming over. She spent New Year's, I think, with us 2 years ago, and things like that.
Her niece's birthday party.
Yeah. So
a couple of things.
Yeah. But, at this point, I think, so all I can remember is there's two instances of, or actually two instances, I'm skipping, sorry. I'm like looking at my notes and like I'm trying to see what I want to start talking with first. But there was one part that I forgot to mention. At this point, after I've told my parents, my mom was still trying to hook me up with people. So here I am. Like, I remember being in my room and I'm just like minding my own business. And my mom comes up and she's like, there's somebody that is asking for you. And do you want to talk to them? And I'm like, what do you know? She's like, well, I have to give them an answer. And I was like, I'm dating somebody. And she just rolls her eyes and like walks away. Cause like, I'm like, my mom is very much about respect. So like, she's not just gonna, I think at this point, actually, I know at this point, no one knew in the family, besides who I told or who my mom and dad told. So she's all about respect. So if someone is asking her, oh, does Merna want to get married? I have my son, or I have this and I have that, blah, blah, blah. I have my nephew. So my mom's not going to tell them like, no, she's dating somebody, because then they're going to be like, oh, who, so she had to like kind of give them an answer. And I just basically told her, tell them I'm focusing on my career right now, because like I really was like, I think, at that time I started my first job and all that stuff, and like as being a therapist in Detroit. So I was, I just told her, I was like, tell them I'm focusing on that, because I couldn't use school as an excuse anymore. So, but yeah, like my mom like would still try to hook me up with people, have her own hope that I would like wake up, and things like that. So anyway, moving on. If I think of more stuff, I'll probably like.
I got a question.
Yeah.
Do you think you ever would have done one of those types of marriages at that time?
Yeah. I think so, because it's weird. Like, I hated being hooked up by friends because I had such a bad experience. I think once or twice, I can't remember. I had such a bad experience that I was like, I never want to be hooked up by friends again. And I think, like, if it wasn't for you, if I didn't meet you, I probably would have been like, where would I have even gone to meet people? You know what I mean? Like, I probably would have tried the whole online dating thing. If I couldn't find people after a while, like, you know, it's so hard, you know, to like date, because it's like, I didn't go to bars like that, nor do I want to meet a guy at a bar or at a club, you know?
Yeah.
But yeah, I think maybe, but then a part of me is like, no, I grew out of that whole like feeling desperate and needing to be married, you know, because I met you when I was 23. So I think I would have probably like been okay being single.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah. Actually, short answer, I don't know.
Okay.
Short answer, I don't know. But anyway, so at this point, I think my dad gave up on me. Like, gave up on like trying to convince me to just be done with this, because we didn't talk for 2 months. This was around Labor Day, because I remember we were going to Chicago. And as we were driving to Chicago, I just was like, I think it was very silent. We didn't really, like, I was barely talking to you. I mean, usually when we're on the way to Chicago, I'm like dancing, singing, you know, like going, I mean, like, how would you describe me, Ryan?
I'll just say that one time we're going to Chicago and she was just singing for like 2 hours straight. And I told her my ear was hurting. She didn't care. And then we got here, fell asleep, woke up, and then the next morning my ear felt like it felt like I had been in a concert. Like, you get like those ringing ears. I had a ringing ear in my right ear because I'm the one who usually drives.
Bro, you're being dramatic.
After that, I have very strict rules in the car
Yeah.
when we're driving.
But yeah, this particular car ride, I was very quiet. I was just like very deep in thought. I just kept thinking about like what has happened thus far. You know, like, I think this is like a few months in. I can't remember if it's a few months in or a year later. I honestly can't remember. But, you know, I can't remember how I started the conversation. But like, we're literally on the way to Chicago to like see my cousin and his family. And this is when I decide to bring this subject matter up. And I think Ryan asked me, you know, are you okay? Like, that's all he asked. And I just was like, I wasn't like 100% comfortable crying in front of him yet. Because I have this like insecurity of like crying in front of men. I feel like you should never show your weakness in front of men. You know, again, an insecurity from like childhood or something that I, you know, am slowly growing out of. But it just would be very painful for me to cry in front of people, especially men, because I just didn't want to look weak. But, you know, he was like, are you okay? And, you know, like, what's going on? Why aren't you like talking or something like that? And I just was like silent because I was trying to like hold back my tears. And what did I say? Like, what did I say to make you ask me that question that I'm thinking of right now?
I don't know. I feel like I can just tell when you are upset. You know? I don't know what I asked you per se, but
you asked me something along. I'm just trying to figure out what led you to this question, because the question is, do you still want to do this, or do you feel like you don't want to do this anymore? I think that was what you said it. How you said it.
I probably asked you, "Are you okay?" And then you probably like, or like, what are you thinking about? And then you probably said something about, um,
Like my parents
your
or something. Yeah.
parents, something like that, and like how hard it was, and then probably, do you still want to do this?
Yeah. So he asked me the question, do you still feel like you want to do this? And I said, I don't know. And he took it as, what did you take it as?
I took it as, why am I driving to Chicago right now? Because we're halfway there, like maybe about 2 hours in. I'm just like, well, why are we going to Chicago for the weekend if you don't know if this is what you want to do?
Yeah. Do you want to mention something else? No? Well, he thought like we've never broken up in our relationship ever, because I just didn't believe in that. I was like, if you're going to break up with me, you're breaking up with me for good. So
what she means is no breaks, essentially. A lot of people take breaks in their relationship, but not breaking up. A break is not breaking up.
That's breaking up.
No.
Yes, it is.
A break is, hey,
I
need a week, bro. Don't come near me.
No.
I don't want to talk to you.
No.
I'll say hi every once in a while.
That's childish. I'm sorry. That's childish. We'll ask our viewers. We'll say, does taking a break in your relationship count as breaking up? Yes or no? And then we'll see.
Some people are going to say yeah, but I feel like.
Remember our age, though.
Depends on how old you are, too.
Yeah.
But I took a lot of breaks when I was in, like, high school relationships.
Yeah, high school, that's different because that's high school. But in our relationship where we're, like, literally, like, okay, this is the person that you're going to spend the rest of your life with, like, that wasn't that was a standard of mine. Like, if you're breaking up with me, you're breaking up with me. Don't come back. Because if you can recall, our foundation episode, communication was like one of the things that we were very, very serious about. Like if there's something wrong, we have to talk about it. Mm-hmm. And if you want to back out, we got to talk about it, So, but yeah, Ryan always looks at that part as that was when I broke up with him, but I did not. That's not me breaking up. That was me.
Because on the way there, she said that. So then we're sitting, like we're driving, and all I can think about is why we're even going on this trip. What are we doing?
Yeah, he mentioned that. Like he literally was like, well, then why are we driving to Chicago?
Yeah, I just got very frustrated. And
he started to tear up, my little habibi.
Oh, it's just like everything that we've been through, and it's plus I'm driving. It's been 2 hours. It's like, bro, why are it's just like okay. Everything came out of nowhere.
It's okay, men cry.
So okay, I don't know how long that was. Like maybe 20-30 minutes of just like talking and then silence, and then out of nowhere, Merna's like whole composure changes and she just starts laughing.
I don't remember that.
I remember that.
What was I laughing about?
Because I guess I like. When I asked you, do you still want to do this? And then you said, I don't know. You thought I meant something else.
What do you mean?
You thought you didn't think I meant about the relationship.
No, I thought you meant the relationship.
That's not what you said when we were driving.
What did I say?
I don't remember exactly what you said. Yeah, I don't know.
Well, I mean, it just, again, it was a very hard trip on the way there.
Yeah. I feel like
I just felt very defeated. Like I think that was at the point that I can honestly say that I was hopeless. You know, like as I mentioned earlier, like how I would have constantly end the conversation with my father, like I have this vision, like I have like, you know, hope that you guys will come over for, you know, random days for dinner or whatever. Like this was the point where I felt hopeless. Like this is going to be something I'm going to have to deal with for the rest of my life, you know, like, and, you know, obviously that's like the anxiety and the depression aspect of it, like how anxiety and depression, like literally, makes your brain think that things are permanent, you know, and, you know, nothing's permanent, whether it's good or bad, you know, but like, especially the bad, nothing is going to be permanent. It might take a long time for it to get better, but like for the most part, it's never going to stay the same way it exactly was, you know, 10 years ago, whatever. So, but at that point in that car ride, I felt like, you know, there's no hope. So that's kind of where I was coming from. I never, like looking back to that car ride, I never had any intention on like breaking up with Ryan. It was just like me, like finally speaking out about how I truly was feeling. 'Cause I would constantly like be the fighter, you know, like when I'm telling Ryan about like what my mom said or what my dad said or what this family member said, like I would just be like, you know, how can they think like that? How can they do that? You know what I mean? Like I would also, like I would just still be fighting, like as if I'm like arguing with the person, you know, that is like pissing me off. But this was the time that I think I was actually showing my defeat in front of Ryan. So.
Yeah, I mean, you're going to have those moments though, because there's no way you can not have outbursts or these moments of like these moments where you're like a volcano and you kind of gotta release pressure, because you know they're not moments of weakness. You just you know, there's maybe a few words or a scream that's in there somewhere that you just kind of have to let go, and you know, I think that's healthy.
Yeah, for sure.
Kind of relieve that stress here and there, because you know, regardless of how supportive I could be or your partner is, it's, you know, I think it's still heavily all on the shoulders of that person whose parents aren't accepting, because they have to deal and live with every little thing that's going on, and every little thing that their parents say or they have to worry about. So, you know, you can say it's, you know, that we fought, but at the end of the day, you know, Merna put in 90% of the work, and she had to deal with 100% of the load. So,
well, no, I wouldn't say that. You definitely were a part of it.
I mean, I helped, but again, you know, you're living with them. You have to see them. You have to have awkwardness every day. So I, you know, and that part, because I hate awkwardness, I can't take it. But
that's why it was so hard meeting my dad that one day.
Yeah. So I mean,
along with other reasons, obviously.
Yeah. So, you know, just can't really prepare for those moments because they come out of nowhere sometimes. But it's not a bad thing to start, you know, just to have a crazy fight out of nowhere. But there's gonna be moments where you feel like you just can't do this anymore. But it's just you kind of getting it off your chest, and then you'll feel a little bit better after.
Yeah, I think that was like, you mentioned a very good point. Like, I wasn't feeling like this after a fight that me and Ryan had. And I'm like, I don't know if I want to do this anymore. You know, like we were on our way to Chicago. Like we love going to Chicago. Like it's not like we had like this big fight and now I'm questioning everything. Like this was legit, like out of nowhere. Like things are great. You know, like we're, you know, as far as like our relationship goes, like it's great. So yeah, but you also mentioned another point that I wanted to bring up. Moving out was a like constant thing that I wanted to do. And for our non-Middle Eastern listeners out there, most of the time it's both men and women don't move out until they're married. but especially for the women, you know? So it's expected that you won't move out of your parents' house. Very, very common, you know, for you to not move out of your parents' house until you're married. My home life was very, very like stressful, to the point that I was constantly considering moving out. But I didn't because of two reasons. And the first one was, if no one's coming to my wedding, then I need to save up as much money as I can to, pay for it all. Between me and Ryan, because, me and Ryan would talk about our wedding and stuff, and how we can't expect like my family or, his family or whatever to pay for it because, of various reasons. But like coming from my own family, obviously, like we didn't even know if they were going to be there. So that was like the main one. And the second reason was how do I explain this? Like, it already looks bad that my mom, has to deal with a daughter dating a black guy. It would have been even worse if people found out that I moved out of the house, even though I constantly kept going back and forth and like thinking, who would even find out? Like, no one has to know, blah, 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 blah. I didn't want to cause even more unnecessary drama. So I just stuck it out. I mean, like, that's like, I could go into even more detail about that. How hard it was to live, in that house. The constant, like, just yelling, that the fights that me and my mom would get into and all that stuff. There's one fight in particular that was very, very, very bad. Like, very bad. So, at one point, this was, I think within the same year. So like 2017, I was doing this missionary trip for 2 weeks, in Kenya. And it was a trip that we visit 3 different villages. And there's like the organization called nochild.org where they sponsor children, and you go there to take the children's like profiles. Like you ask them these questions, you take their pictures, you ask them questions like, what's your favorite subject in school? What's your favorite hobby? Things like that. So that way sponsors back home can read these things and be like, oh my gosh, they're so cute. They want to become like, these children are so beautiful, they want to become a doctor, they want to become a lawyer and all that stuff. So you sponsor them to help them get education, and things like that. So at the time, it's a 2-week trip. And because you're in these like villages in Kenya, there's no Wi-Fi. So, the only time I had Wi-Fi was in the airport. So beginning of the trip and at the end of the trip. And, there's 2 things that I want to mention about this trip. Number one, in regards to Ryan. First and foremost, anyone who knows me and knows, like my trust or distrust in men. Okay. Like, I still till this day, I think to myself, how in the world was I able to go on this trip and not have any insecurity about Ryan cheating on me or Ryan wanting to just leave me or things like that. Like, I even remember texting him, like, and I'll probably, if I can find the text, I'll post it on stories. But, I asked Ryan, I was like, what if my dad like threatens you to leave me and all that stuff? And like Ryan just like flat out said, like, the only person that can make me leave you is you. And, it just like, it was going to be really, really hard because we're going through literally a hurricane. And I'm going to be taking this 2-week trip to a foreign country where there's no sense of, you're like literally off the grid, So, the only people I had to talk to were the people on the trip. And it was a very lonely time, for me, because if anything, I needed to be around Ryan. But at that time because, just going through what I was going through. But anyway, so before the trip, it was this big argument between me and my mom about who was going to take me to the airport. Do you remember this, Ryan?
Yeah, because I remember how, ridiculous it was.
Yeah.
But, because when did you leave? What day were you leaving?
I think I was leaving, on a Friday or a Saturday or something like that.
Yeah, because, again, Merna's mom works, 10-hour shifts.
Yeah.
What is it, 6 days a week? Give or take? Yeah.
6 days a week, depending if there's, a holiday or something.
I think before your niece was a certain age.
Well, my niece wasn't even born.
Oh, yeah. So she was doing 6 days back then.
Something like that. So
because no one needed her to do anything when it comes to babysitting or, yeah.
Depending on, the holidays and stuff, my mom works a lot.
So, off there, I can understand, because she's the only person paying bills in that house, except, aside from you paying, your phone bill, whatever like that.
I would pay for all my stuff. My mom never asked me for help or anything like that.
So off of that, I can understand the no, I can't. But
no, you can't. What are you talking about?
No, I can't take you to the airport. But at the same time, it's okay, your daughter.
Oh no, she wasn't. No, that's not where I'm going with that.
No, I know where you're going with it. I'm just saying I can. Because I remember how ridiculous it was, but I was trying to understand why she was saying no or all this stuff in the first place.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah,
but
she had to work.
Yeah, she had to work.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I'm thinking at least, you could take off a morning or, something along those lines to take it to the airport. Granted, the airport from you guys is
it's an hour.
It's an hour long. So
yeah, it's an hour away.
So that whole trip would take her about 2.5 hours probably to get out there, say bye, come back. Mm-hmm. So I could sort of understand why no was an option, but then everything else was just, ridiculous.
Yeah, so I already had it in my mind that Ryan would take me because he's 30 minutes away from the airport, and I was just going to leave my car with him. So I, when anybody would ask me, I can't remember if my brother had asked me or if my dad had asked me, but the word got out that Ryan's going to take me. And the day before I'm supposed to go, me and my mom got into the biggest argument about who's going to take me. And she would say oh, it's already set up. Your dad and your brother are going to take you. I'm like, they don't have to take me. Ryan's going to take me. And she's like, no, he's not taking you. No. Just going off and off about you're not going to leave your car there, blah, 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 because I guess she was thinking he lives in a bad neighborhood or something. I'm not trying to put words in my mom's mouth or, again, I don't know what she was thinking at the time, but from what in my perspective, she thought that my car was going to be a problem or something like that, staying there. And because she was a co-signer, she didn't want anything bad to happen. Or I don't even think she was co-signing for my car actually at that time. Because the car was under my name, insurance was under my name, I pay for everything.
I think this car was.
You think so?
Yeah, because I've known you, and you've had 3 cars.
I leased my car, guys.
Yeah, you've had three of your cars. The first car was when I met you, and that you had for 2 years. Mm-hmm. That you and your mom would always get together.
No, then if that's the case, then yes, this car was not co-signed by her because when you met me, she had co-signed my car.
I don't know that.
Yeah, so she didn't even have this car as a co-sign, but she just Ryan just bumped his head on the mic. But anyway, so yeah, she was just paranoid about that, and she was just very, very livid that he's going to take me. But what my family was not understanding is that the only person I want saying bye to me or near me at that time was Ryan. At that time, I was just done with my family. It's not that I didn't care to see them for the last time for 2 weeks, you know, I say last time, but like, it's just not see them for a long time. It wasn't like that. It was just like I needed a break from them, you know, and obviously this was no vacation. You know, we slept on like, you know, benches that we would put together, and there's this thin twin mattress that we would sit on, you know, like in Kenya. This was no vacation whatsoever. You know, I was like showering with cockroaches all over the wall and stuff. Cause again, that's a different story, but like it was definitely a
yeah, but it's good to paint the picture of like where you guys were staying.
Yeah,
you guys were staying.
We were staying in essentially like a church that the villagers like that they built, and you know, like the bathrooms, you know, it's a hole in the ground. There's cockroaches everywhere.
It's not a very
sorry. This was the first village that we went to. They took us to the first village first, specifically for this reason, because each village potentially got better as far as like the resources that they had and stuff like that, to show us like how much sponsorship was important and where sponsorship can take these villages. So the first village was like the worst one. The second one was like okay, and then the third one was like, by that time it was like it felt like a 5-star hotel, you know. Even though like, you know, we had our mosquito nets that we would have to sleep in and all that stuff. So things like that. I mean, if anyone's interested in that story, you know, like I can like talk about it with them, because that was, I still have like my journal from back then too, like where I was writing about my experiences, but like writing about my experiences, but also writing to Ryan in a sense. So, cause I told Ryan, I was like, please like write every day, you know, like so I can come back and read and read it, and he did. No.
I did 3 days worth of like video journals.
Yeah, and they were like.
And then so
it was like. Sorry.
So you were in Kenya because of the travel time for, I think it was like 12 days or 10 days total. Because the flights and the bus rides were so long. It was like
12 days. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think I did the first couple of days and then stopped. And then the day before you got home, I took a video of me getting your car washed. And that was about it. That was about it.
And like, guys, the videos would be like
you know, a minute and a half.
No, not even just that. It's like, yeah, I woke up today and you know, I went to school, going to the gym. Talk to you later. Bye. Love you. Like, I'm like literally pouring my heart out in these journal entries, telling him how I feel, telling him what I'm seeing and all this stuff, and he's just like, "Yep. Well, today was pretty boring." You know.
Yeah, she's having a life-changing trip, and she expected me to have some life detail, like, oh, I woke up, the carpet felt the same today, but a little new, like something weird. Like, bro, what do you mean?
I guess I was just like thinking, you know, like, are you gonna tell me like, what are you thinking about? Like, you know how like women just constantly ask me, what are you thinking about? You know, like, I don't know what I was thinking, but anyway, so yeah, that's essentially where we were at. But back to what I was talking about. So it's the day before I'm supposed to leave, and my mom is just giving me hell about like who's taking me to the airport, and I struggled with talking about this on the podcast. I didn't want to put her out there like that, but I just kind of want to give you guys like how paranoid I was about. I legit thought my mom would like take my keys and like not let me go, you know, like, and I know a lot of Chaldean women out there struggle with that. Like, I'm sure that there are times where you maybe even Chaldean men too, or Middle Eastern people in general, or other minorities. Anyway, like you struggle with like wanting to do something that's like kind of like that's kind of like unique and not the typical thing that like your culture does. Like, but you know, your parents would never let you, you know, things like that. Like, even though I was very like independent besides having my own place to stay, everything else I was very independent from my parents and stuff. So I knew they couldn't do that, but like that paranoia and that me still feeling like a little kid because they're treating me like a little kid instantly like got me paranoid, and I hid my keys and my wallet and my passport and everything that night. To make sure that like my mom wouldn't like sneak in or something like that from my room to like take it. You know, I look back at that day and just, you know, think how crazy, you know, like it was back then and how, where we're at now. Like it's just completely different. Thank God. But yeah, like it just, and you know, my dad, I really don't remember my dad. I'm sure he like texted me or something and said, have a safe trip or whatever. But I came back from Kenya 2 weeks later, and the only person, like when I had Wi-Fi again, in the airport, like I would only text Ryan. I came back from Kenya. Ryan picked me up from the airport. I stayed at Ryan's house for 2 hours because I didn't want to go home. I just like wanted to stay with him.
And what day did you get back on?
I think it was a Sunday because my mom was home. Actually, I don't know because I came back in the afternoon.
It was weird.
So I think it was a Sunday, actually, if I can
Either-
recall.
Either you came home and your mom wasn't there. And
No,
then
she
the
was
next day
there. She was there.
Okay.
Yeah, she was there. And I came home and I walked in the door and, you know, it was just kind of the same. Like, you know, my aunt was very happy to see me and my mom was just kind of like, you know, just didn't show emotion. My mom has a very hard time with showing any emotion besides anger.
Unless her niece is around.
Unless her niece is around.
Then she's-
Or unless my niece is around, her granddaughter.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Unless her granddaughter's around, then it's the
She's-
Nani's.
Yeah,
Nani's
Nani's happy.
Yeah.
Nani's like laughing. Nani's playing.
That's
you
the
know,
only time I've like. She's truly happy is when she's with her granddaughter, because she is a totally different person when she's around.
yeah,
Because she, you know, and it's very weird to see sometimes.
yeah.
Honestly.
And again, this goes back to like, you know, not all Chaldean moms are like this. You know, I through my own like. Through my profession and also through my own like therapy journey, you know, I've realized that like, you know, our parents are the product of their environment, you know, of their childhood experiences, of their traumas and all of that stuff, and we have to accept them for who they are, you know, and be able to realize that you can't change them, you know. And I think like the thing that I was like, I woke up this morning and I if I can remember like what I was, this particular sentence that I wanted to like put out there in the podcast today, in the episode today, is that like we fear what we don't know, so we stick to what's comfortable, you know. So there's a lot of the things that we're talking about here that my parents had no idea about. They just hear from other people what Black people are like, or in their own experiences of, you know, owning liquor stores or gas stations. Like they just think like, they just generalize a whole group of people, a whole population. So as opposed to asking the questions, you know, being curious in a respectful way, you know, versus like just completely fearing and not wanting to get to know what they don't know, if I'm making sense. Like they rather just like stick in their comfort zone and just fear like the possibilities and these outcomes that, oh, my daughter's dating a Black guy, like, and they just like completely fear it, as opposed to, my daughter is dating a guy, like no emphasis on Black. My daughter's dating a guy. Let's figure out what he's about, you know. but they just hear black and it's like all this fear comes onto them. What are people going to think?
Well, I feel like a lot of it too, before we wrap up here, is just they're coming from a long life and their experience of their parents picked who they were going to marry. So they have a lot of input and say on, who you're going to be with, kind of who you're spending the rest of your life with. It's not so much, even though, I'm sure that, their friends and family members have all experienced, their daughter or son finding someone on their own. But I'm sure they had a idea of, okay, like, we're going to pick someone for Merna.
No.
No?
No. My mom has literally told me, like, don't think about marriage, like, focus on school. Like, she didn't really care it's not that she didn't care if I married a Chaldean, like I mentioned earlier in previous episodes, like, they didn't have to be Chaldean, but, like, she would be okay with, like, Italian or something European, but, like, never Black, Mexican, or, things like that. But my dad, I think my dad would be more so, like, okay with, like, picking someone for me, like, there were a couple times where he tried to hook me up with people and it was like it was like, it didn't work out. But, yeah, I don't think they had any intention of, like, trying to arrange me because, they were arranged. So, yeah. But yeah, like I said, that was just, like, one instance where it got, like, very, very bad. Kenya, as much of a beautiful experience and growing experience it was one of the worst experiences of my life because of what I was going through. But we'll talk about more of how my mom came around and how my dad came around, and that'll probably be more Ryan talking because it'll be our engagement. Yeah.
The funnest times.
Yeah.
That one's gonna be weird. I'm gonna spend a lot of time trying to think because it's so hard to realize when the switch flipped for them. Mm-hmm. When it was like, okay.
I knew exactly when it was for my mom. Yeah. I don't know about my dad.
I'm gonna spend a long time thinking because when it literally it was like the lights off, and the lights on. That's kind of how it's been. Like, the light's been on since the engagement. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would say. Because even though, we'll go into that, but the light's been just LED, never gonna go out type of a thing since the engagement. So, but but it was kind of before that because things happened before that. This started to just really just click more,
put everything into place.
But yeah, I'll think about that stuff and
so maybe you can do the outline next time.
Maybe.
All right, guys, thank you for riding with us. We'll see you next week.
Bye.